Hey, everybody. We're back with another episode on feedback because it is notoriously the most popular training topic for managers and for leaders. No matter how high up folks go, giving feedback seems to be a continuous source of stress and even fear for so many people at work. If you're a manager of people, you need to give feedback. So in this episode, we're diving into it, but we're not talking about how to give feedback. You can look that up yourself, and there are many frameworks to choose from online. What we are talking about is changing your relationship to feedback to one that is more easeful and one that leaves you feeling more willing and more comfortable to give it to your team members. Let's get started. I have led countless, and I do mean countless, workshops on how to deliver feedback at work. I've taught multiple frameworks. There are many for how to deliver it. The CPR method, the core method, the SBI model, the SCARF framework. There are so many how-to step-by-step frameworks on how to deliver critical feedback. And they kind of all have similar components. You can sort of pick your poison and whatever one feels right to you. And if you use it, it will work. But even with the best and simplest of tools, people still shy away from giving critical feedback. And I will tell you that no matter which framework I have taught, what comes up in every single workshop or training session that I do with managers or leaders, no matter if it's a group of new managers or even a group of individual contributors, meaning people who don't manage other people, all the way up to senior level leaders, the range of feelings about giving feedback goes from, yeah, this makes me really uncomfortable, to I would literally rather put a hot fork in my eye than give someone critical feedback. But if you lead people, you have to give critical feedback. It's part of the job. It's not an option. And if you're not giving it, you're not doing your job. So why do we have so much damn trouble with feedback? One word: fear. But before we dig into the fear stuff, I want to call out that there might also be some specific circumstances that could prevent you from delivering feedback that aren't about fear. And I want to acknowledge them too, because this show is never a one answer explains everything kind of show. I never want to say to you, this is the one reason, this is the one way. I want to give you many things to consider, and you get to take what works for you and then leave the rest behind. So here are a few sort of circumstantial outside of you reasons that you might not feel comfortable and confident delivering critical feedback. One is your company culture. In some workplaces, there's kind of an unspoken rule to stay in your lane or avoid giving feedback unless asked. And another reason could be that there is some ambiguity about expectations, meaning you don't understand what good feedback looks like, or you aren't sure what's appropriate to comment on as a manager. You don't know, is this the moment? Do I give feedback about this? Is this the right time? You kind of haven't been taught any of that. There haven't been standards around expectations that have been set. And then there's also companies that have unclear feedback processes, where there's no clear structure or even encouragement for giving feedback. And so people might not feel like it's their place. All of these are very real circumstances. And if one of these is similar to a situation you're in, then there might be some other conversations that need to happen with your HR or your people team. But these are bigger circumstantial issues. They are part of the design of your organization, meaning it's kind of out of your hands. What we're talking about today is what is in your hands, and that is your relationship to feedback. We all have a relationship to feedback. We all have a relationship to the experience of hearing a reflection from someone else about how we are doing. And for some of us, it's a more positive relationship than for others. It might make us feel a certain way, and then it impacts how we feel about it and how comfortable we feel giving feedback to others. So now let's get back to that fear factor. In November of 24, which was just a couple of months ago, I led a half-day leadership development workshop with about 30 directors, senior directors, and VPs. And I asked the group at the beginning of the session, who here feels totally 100% confident in their ability to give critical feedback? One person raised their hand, and it was not the most senior person in the room. There was a C-level person in the room, and they did not raise their hand. When we started to dig into why they didn't feel like they could do it, what came up were examples and stories that told me a lot about their individual relationships to feedback. And they all centered around some kind of fear. The first fear that showed up for many of them was fear of conflict. Many people perceive giving critical feedback as a type of conflict. And a lot of people have not been taught or nurtured through how to have healthy conflict. I mean, it's something I have to work on regularly and have done with therapists for many years. And now in my, marriage, we work on that actively because I don't think anybody really shows up to the party feeling comfortable in conflict. And ultimately, nobody wants other people to be mad at them or to be upset with them. So there's a ranging level of fear around conflict for many people. And they equate giving feedback with a type of conflict. So that's one reason they might shy away. Another kind of fear that might show up is the fear of damaging relationships. Some people said, look, I don't want to damage a good relationship. We have to work together frequently and we have a good flow. And I don't want to screw that up by giving them feedback that they might take really personally and be upsetting for them. Another fear that showed up for this group and shows up quite often in coaching and in other training sessions is the fear of being judged. A person might worry that their feedback makes them look bad, like they are overly critical or overly harsh. And this is really about you wanting to be liked more than anything, because we all want to be liked. I really don't think anybody walks around going, I don't give a shit if people don't like me. No, I think we all care about that. And if delivering feedback could potentially endanger that or threaten that, for some of us, that's more deep than others. And so it might cause us to turn away from delivering feedback, even though it's part of our job as a manager. There's also just the fear of discomfort. Giving feedback can feel awkward or stressful, so people avoid it because they like to stay comfortable. Our resilience to discomfort has declined greatly. Everything is about good vibes and feeling good moments, and if it's not that, then you have the right to leave. Call me a Gen Xer, call me old, whatever, but I think we're getting a little bit soft when it comes to being uncomfortable, because discomfort does not equal pain or even disrespect. Discomfort can create resilience. Discomfort teaches us that we can sit through hard things. It shows us what we're made of when we can move through discomfort and come out the other side. But we're very caught in a world where we can just scroll past things we don't like. We can unsubscribe. We can leave. And in a virtual work setting, I can just keep my communication with someone in text only. I don't even have to engage with them face to face. But being able to discern between something that's uncomfortable and something that is potentially damaging or dangerous is critical. And I think that we can conflate the feeling of discomfort with I'm in danger. But if you think about it, lifting weights at the gym is uncomfortable. I don't ever feel comfortable doing that, but it builds muscle. We do it for a purpose. It builds muscle, it builds strength, it builds physical resilience. It's the same with emotional discomfort. I'm not saying we should be out there constantly making ourselves uncomfortable, but we should be thinking about how willing we are to be in a moment of discomfort for the sake of creating growth, change, harmony, and just better overall productivity with one another. Okay, so we talked about fear of conflict, fear of damaging relationships, of being judged, fear of discomfort. There's also just this fear of saying something wrong, using the wrong words, doing it badly, getting things mixed up, or being misunderstood. And all of those experiences for a high achiever is a tough pill to swallow because it means you don't look perfect. And oh my goodness, what will people think of me if I mess this up? I can't let that happen. Nope. Can't show the cracks in the foundation. So I'm just not going to say anything. And the last fear is fear or concern about someone's reaction. If you're giving feedback, maybe you're anticipating defensiveness or that they'll have some sort of emotional response, or maybe even that they might retaliate. And this concern about reaction can happen a lot across gender in feedback, particularly when men in manager roles are giving feedback to women that might report to them. They report that they're afraid that women will start to cry. So there's a book, it's called Let's Talk, Making Feedback Your Superpower. It's by an author. Her name is Dr. Therese Houston. I'll include it in the show notes. And it is all about feedback. It's a brilliant book, highly recommend it. And she cites many surveys, but one that she cites says that 41% of women report that they've cried at work, compared to 9% of men. Does that mean that they are over emotional, can't handle their emotions, hypersensitive? No, not at all. I think that this is just the result of men being trained in society that showing emotion is bad. She says, quote, to be on the safe side, you pad your comments with niceties or white lies or vague statements, nothing too upsetting. But then it means that women aren't getting clear signals that the men are receiving. And more importantly, they aren't being set up to succeed. So niceness can get in the way of you giving somebody an opportunity to learn and grow in their role. You're trying to be too nice. You're trying to soft pedal. You're trying to sugarcoat. And then they're not getting the kind of feedback that they need to grow and get better because you are uncomfortable about how they might respond. All of these fears are about you, not the other person. Avoiding or withholding giving feedback out of fear or discomfort is about you, not them. No matter what story you have told yourself about why you're not giving the feedback, it's not the right time. I don't want to upset them. This isn't good. It won't work. I'm afraid to hurt their feelings. All those reasons you have in your head, those are about you. No one gets better without reflection. And sometimes the reflection can be self-driven, meaning it comes from a person from the inside and they stop and make an active practice of reflecting on their work, reflecting on their behavior, and seeing how they can get better. They give themselves feedback. And sometimes the reflection needs to come from the outside, i.e., a manager like you. As a manager, consider yourself an honest mirror. It's a productive and kind way to reflect for your team. So how do you change your relationship to feedback? If you're experiencing one of these fears and feedback is a stumbling block for you, whether it's a deep stumbling block or, just kind of a thing that you set aside or try to avoid, how do you change that relationship to feedback? Well, like anything, it takes self-awareness, it takes practice, it takes making different choices. So I'm going to give you some things to consider if you struggle with giving feedback, even with the best of tools. You still can't seem to get through the experience of giving your team members feedback. The first thing I want you to consider is change your definition of what feedback is. It's not actually a criticism. I know we call it critical feedback, but that's just because of the limitations of our language. But it's not actually a criticism. It's a type of reflective development. The person receiving the feedback is getting a reflection of them, their behavior, their actions, their performance, and it's for their development. You are giving them reflections on how they are doing. And language is important. So if you start to call this reflection, reflective development, it might shift the context for you. It might shift your mindset a little bit about what feedback is. Language is really important in our world. What we say, we create. What we say, we then believe. How we define things makes all the difference in how we embody them. So let's stop calling it critical feedback and instead think of it as a supportive reflection or development support, or come up with your own phrase for what it is. But language might help you start to shift your relationship with feedback. The second thing to think about is think kind, not nice. We often conflate kindness with niceness. Niceness is a social convention. It's what we do when someone asks us if we think their baby is cute. We're always going to say yes because who does it serve to tell them that their baby's ugly? No one. Trying to be nice, though, waters down feedback. For feedback to be useful, which means it's something that someone can take action on. It needs to be clear and direct and specific. And when we try to sugarcoat the feedback with niceness, or do that age-old feedback sandwich, meaning we say something nice, we say the critical feedback, and then we say something nice again, we water down the message. And what happens is it creates confusion. But kindness is different. Kindness combines two qualities: respect and candor. You are being clear and direct with your candor, and you are being respectful of the person that you are delivering it to. You are delivering it like a human, and you are considering your audience. The other piece of the respect is that we are respecting them enough to give them the truth. I'm respecting you enough to tell you the truth because I think you can handle it. If you have ever in your life found out that you were lied to because someone didn't think you could handle the truth, how did that make you feel? I have had that happen. It feels lousy. And I'm going to guess it probably didn't feel great for you too. It makes a person feel pretty small when someone thinks they can't handle something. So do them the respect of assuming they can, and then trust yourself to deliver it kindly. Next, you want to make this a conversation. I think we can get into our heads about what the moment of feedback delivery is like. And it's like, I'm telling you what you did wrong. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be a one-way experience. Make it a conversation. You're not just pointing your finger and telling them that they screwed up. You can make it a conversation by inviting them in and using language like, so here's what I'm seeing. Here's the impact of what I'm seeing. Here are some ways that I think you could make this better. And then you can ask them, hey, how does that sound? How do you feel about what I just said? What's clear? What's not clear? What information am I missing? What's going on for you? How are you seeing this? Invite them into the conversation so they can learn and really own what they want to change. Because if someone came to you and was like, you need to do it like this, I mean, depending on the person and the situation, you might do it, but I'm going to bet that there's going to be something that feels a little rebellious or even resentful at being told what to do and how to do it. No one likes that. But if you are inviting someone into the conversation with you and saying, here are some suggestions. How does that feel for you? What do you think? They get a chance to take it on and own it as theirs. It makes them feel seen and heard, which really, I mean, who doesn't want to feel seen and heard? It also shows that you're willing to be wrong, which creates trust. And the more someone trusts you, the more willing they are to hear your feedback and reflections in the future. Another thing you can do to start to shift your relationship with the feedback and to feel a little more comfortable and confident is just to script yourself and rehearse. Seriously, write down what you need to say and then practice it multiple times. Put effort into this and rehearse so you feel more comfortable and confident in your delivery. Ask a peer to listen to you give the feedback and have them give you feedback on your feedback. We can rehearse feedback. It's just like anything that we are presenting, anything that we want to land, like a pitch or a presentation, anything you're sharing in front of others where you want to get someone's buy-in, that's feedback. You're getting someone's feedback when you get their buy-in. And when you are delivering critical feedback, you want the person to understand and hear you and get bought into it, which deserves your planning and practice in order to make it meaningful. Okay, so the next thing you can do is to stop projecting. You probably don't know how the person's going to respond. All the concerns that you have about upsetting them or them getting defensive, it might be based in nothing. And if it's based in truth and it's happened before and you have witnessed it, well, that's a different situation. But if someone does cry, you can be with them. You can give them time to collect themselves. If someone gets defensive, you can put on your curiosity hat and ask them about how they feel about what you're saying, how they see it. And look, if it's really bad, you call in reinforcements like HR or your own boss, right? You escalate. But for most scenarios, check your chicken little. The sky is not always falling. You're just giving some reflective feedback and you have the right because it's your job. So give them a chance to show up open and willing to be coached. And the last thing here is you are not perfect. So stop trying to make this perfect. If you come at feedback with kindness and curiosity and candor, and you genuinely want to help your team members get better, it will be received that way, no matter how clunky, how awkward it might feel for you. If you are authentically supportive, it will show. Feedback might never be a breeze for you, but that's not the point. Some things will always be challenging for us. What changes is our willingness to do them because they are necessary. And our resilience to the discomfort that we feel also changes the more that we do it. When we work on changing those parts of ourselves that aren't perfect, that are a little clunky, that has a little bit of fear, we start to show up differently and better. Others begin to trust us more, and then we trust ourselves more. You want to talk about where confidence comes from? It comes from being willing to face hard things, especially when they're inconvenient. And feedback is never convenient, but it is required. And you can do it because you've done harder things. That's all for now. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. And until then, take good care of yourselves. Lots of love and big energy.